Hello, what's going on, everyone? I'm John Hasselbauer, golf writer for thelines.com. This is From the Tips. In this video, we'll be going over a quick recap of the Open Championship last week, a little touch on the Barracuda with Akshay winning, adding to the outright total for the year for us, and then, of course, looking into everything we need to know about TPC Twin Cities for the 3M Open. Before we go any further, make sure you are subscribed to thelines.com. Hit that subscribe button below. Check out my tournament preview article and all the links to thelines.com in the description, and make sure you are subscribed to the Discord channel where all my picks are posted for free, and all of our discussion, good or bad, which was kind of a run of the gamut on Sunday, but we have a nice live discussion and a growing community in our golf bets discussion channel in the Discord, so can't stress enough. If you want to just get access to that community, see my picks in real time when I'm placing them, so you're getting the CLV, but also just kind of sweating it together, that's the place to be. So just starting with a look back at last week. So much happened last week, right? We had the last major of the year, the 151st Open at Hoylake. Brian Harman won in anticlimactic fashion. A really interesting dynamic watching that, because I think it was very palpable from the fans in person that they were kind of rooting for Harman to slip so that we could get a little drama. I think the fans probably crossed the line a little bit where they were kind of just jeering at him and taking it a step too far and not really appreciating how awesome that 4-day stretch of golf truly was. I mean, it is commendable. That Friday round was just insane with the eagle to cap it off and separate so much from the field, but to back it up with 2 rounds under par on the weekend as well, and really nasty conditions on Sunday in particular. Just hats off to Brian Harman, somebody who I obviously, I had a lot of discussion about this week, but I tweeted out on Monday that just a blind profile of Brian Harman coming in. He had the world golf ranking inside the top 30, back-to-back 3 straight top 12s leading in, a top 10 at the Open the year before, a top 20 the year before that. So everything from like a form on paper resume standpoint was kind of actually trending towards this guy is really due to break out. The problem is he's Brian Harman and he hadn't won in 6 years. And I get very stuck when I'm trying to bet majors on the atmosphere and the pressure that you have to be able to step up and handle those moments. Brian Harman did an awesome job of just putting himself in a position where he didn't have to worry. He didn't have to be stressed over these stressful shots. I do think from a golf viewership standpoint, it's a shame that we didn't get a tight finish. I think that would be such an amazing venue to have 2 guys tied neck and neck, or even, if you remove Brian Harman from the equation, you had 3 or 4 or 5 guys at 7 under. You had like 8 guys in the mix between 7 or 6 under. And there's just such a range of scoring that can happen when you're forced to be aggressive on that 17th and 18th stretch. We saw, Matt Fitzpatrick made like a triple on the 17th hole, not down the stretch, but just in general, that's in play. We've seen Ricky Fowler go out of bounds 3 times on the last hole. So, you can make eagle on 18. You can also make an 8 or a 9. So it would have been really interesting if there's any pressure put on Harman. I was on John Rahm. It seemed like at one point he made a little bit of a charge and he got within 3 strokes. I believe it was Harman at 10 under and Rahm at 7 under. That's the closest anybody ever really got to Harman. And then as soon as Harman made that bounce back birdie, it was over. He separated back to 4 under. Rahm started pressing and he just wasn't making you had to be perfect to chase Harman at the end of the day. And he wins in a dominant fashion by 5 or 6 strokes. So again, hats off to Brian Harman, the week of his life. I hope he does enjoy it. I hope he's welcomed back at Hoylake the next time he's there, because it seemed like the media wasn't the kindest to him. The fans were rooting for a little bit of a collapse. They didn't get it. So in the end, we'll look back on Brian Harman's performance and think of it as one of the most dominant ones that we've seen in quite some time. Now, what that does, bigger picture, with Brian Harman winning the Open from a Ryder Cup perspective, is it has to lock him on the team, I believe, even from a point standpoint. He's locked in now. A similar story with Wyndham Clark. They were having good seasons. They win a major. All of a sudden, you're on Team USA. But that kind of blocks out the bottom half of Team USA a little bit. So I would say the fringe guys now in that 11, 12 spot are going to be Tony Finau, Sam Burns, who, if you ask me, those would be the last two guys on the team. And then you also have Justin Thomas, Cameron Young, and Keegan Bradley, I would say, are the next three that are on the bubble. So of those five, only two are going to make it. And before Brian Harmon won, he was not even in the picture, which is interesting how much that can sway. But before that, you had three spots. And I think that Justin Thomas would have probably gotten one. But now you have this juxtaposition where JT embarrassed himself, shot an 80, looked horrible, looked lost, is now forcing himself to play in the last two events of the PGA Tour schedule just to make the playoffs. So I would have to say he's on the outside looking in at the playoffs. He should be the outside looking in at the Ryder Cup team. If he makes the playoffs, if he has a couple top 20s, I think even a couple top 30s might get it done at the 3M and at the Wyndham, then it's a different story. He seems to be finding something, and that's enough. You know, he's got the experience. He's got your last spot. It'd probably bump off Sam Burns in that instance. But I do think between Burns, JT, Cam Young, and Keegan, whoever has the best playoffs and the best next two events of the year is going to get, that last spot. So that'll be interesting to track. For the Euros, I think the only significant change coming out of last week is that Sepp Straka is definitely on the team now. I think he should have been on before last week, but finishing second place in the Open, now being like a top 5 favorite in a PGA Tour event. He's definitely being respected more. He's not like the first guy you would think of as a European player, being so Americanized. He lives in America. He went to school there, but there's plenty of European players now who live in America, raise their families in America. So I don't think that's as much of a big deal as some of the narratives might draw it up to be. But yeah, that's 3M. Oh, that's the Open fallout. And just to touch on the Barracuda, I didn't really watch too much of it until Sunday. But we did hit Akshay Bhatia, which is awesome. A guy I've been following. He's 21 years old now. I've probably been following since he was 16 or 17 years old. He's been billed as this phenom, next man up. Somebody who definitely had live offers, turn them down because he wanted to chase a PGA Tour career, wanted to go through the grind. He did. He won a Corn Ferry event last year. He got his temporary exemptions to this season. He had enough high finishes in other opposite field events like the Puerto Rico Open to get the temporary membership for the rest of the year. And then he caps it off with a win at the Barracuda to get his full-time membership through next season. So always nice when, these opposite field events are not they're not supposed to be life-changing events. Therefore, everybody who didn't qualify for the larger event happening the same week. So if you had a guy like, I don't know, let's say Keith Mitchell won last week, it wouldn't really feel that special because he's won a PGA Tour event before. His card's pretty locked up already and all of that. But nice to see the emotion of Akshay. Nice to get our 7th outright of the year, which is awesome to be 7 months into the year and have 7 outrights. I structure my card to hit one every other week. So yeah, just happy to still be on a nice run in a year that's been a very strange way of getting to these outrights. I've had 3 opposite field outright winners between Matt Wallace at the Corrales and last week's Barbasol with Vincent Norman. So it's been a strange year. I've never hit an opposite field outright before this year, and we've got 3 now. So we'll take them. They pay out the same. The odds pay the same, I always say. So that is all good. And just an appreciation, a thank you for all the support, whether in Discord or Twitter. I've been feeling the love after the last major of the year. I know a lot of people kind of check out after the majors, casual bettors who tune into my stuff for the majors only. So you may not be here for the second week in a row on the 3M tuning into this video, but have gotten a lot of nice feedback from the latest run on the content. And even with Brian Harmon, it's nice to know that even though I didn't bet him, my tweet kind of got a couple people DMing me and saying that was enough for them to make some money off of him. So at the end of the day, that's what we're all about. free information for everybody to do as they will with it, and hopefully, you have a more profitable year having listened to this video or following my tweets or reading my articles. So that is all good stuff, positive vibes leading into the 3M Open. This week is the penultimate event on the PGA Tour schedule. The final event of the regular season will be at the Wyndham Championship next week. And a little added pressure this year. It used to be top 125, made it into the playoffs this year. It's only top 70. So that means a lot of like good players who normally would feel pretty safe at this point need to keep playing to ensure that they have enough points to qualify. So still a lot more stakes, I would say a lot more stakes at this 3M Open than there typically are because of that premium on the top 70. There's guys like Cam Young is a very good example of that, who was not planning to be here. He kind of slipped back a little bit to closer to like 50th in the FedEx Cup standings. His top 10 finish at the Open last week kind of improves that standing, but he already committed, before that tournament was over. So that's an example of somebody who probably wouldn't come here, but just to make sure that they're well positioned for the playoffs has made the trip. Justin Thomas, obviously a lot will be discussed about him. His kind of fall off. I mentioned where he stands in the Ryder Cup. He's, I believe, 74th on the FedEx Cup standing. So he desperately needs a top 20 in one of these next 2 weeks. He just committed to the Wyndham Championship as well. But that's what makes this event a lot more unique than some of the other like major hangover events, if you will. There's anyone who's here is here motivated to just take advantage of an extra week to gain points, to get better position, to make it into Eastlake, because we know all of the perks that come with getting to Eastlake, but especially next year with more of a designated limited field schedule, it's paramount to get in that top 70 if you're on the fringe. So that will be something very interesting to look out for this week. Otherwise, what we know about TPC Twin Cities, it is a typical TPC layout, but it adds more water than most of the other TPCs that we're used to. The winning score has typically been around 15 to 20 under par. And the tournament founder has described this as a place he wants to get birdies and train wrecks, which is a perfect summation of what goes on here. There are a lot of gettable par fours. There are a lot of eagle opportunities on par fives. And in general, the fairways are somewhat generous. But anything that's not in the fairway is in danger of going in the water. So from that standpoint, it does kind of remind me of some of those Florida courses. PGA National, host of the Honda Classic, is definitely one that comes to mind as another course that really penalizes the wayward drives. And that's actually something that we talked about a lot at the Open last week, where you need to have good total driving distance is going to be advantageous, and not spraying it is going to be very helpful here, because you're going to have to hit a lot of drivers with the length of this course. And anything that you slice or hit off target is in danger of needing a reload and going into the water. So definitely driving, I would say strokes gained off the tee more important here than most any other week on the PGA Tour, especially for an event that may have a reputation as being a birdie fest. A note on Tony Finau. He's your defending champion this week. He came in off of a fairly disappointing showing at the Open the week before, but he turned it on and was one of the low rounds of the day on Sunday. Really parlayed that into his win, and then went on to win the Rocket Mortgage, which was the week after this last year. So the Open kind of turned his season around last year. And I think a misconception about this week is that you may not want to play the Open guys because they have a long travel back. There might be a hangover, but obviously that was not the case for Tony Finau. So I'm not really shying away from playing any guys who played in the Open. And if they looked good, they might be able to channel that and draw from it and build confidence off of it. So I'm only seeing good signs to pull out of performance from the Open last week. And if you missed the cut, I think that's okay too, because you just got here a little bit sooner. Quickly on course comps, I talked about the Honda Classic. I think that's a really good example of a course that really threatens with water around the fairways. Michael Thompson has won at both. Sung Jae has had really good results at both as well. And even Sepp Straka is second all time at the 3M Open in ball striking. And he has obviously won the Honda Classic as well. So a lot of correlation I see there. It's something that I'll be referencing when I put my betting card together. TPC Louisiana actually has some good overlap with a lot of water risk reward holes as well. That is a team event, so a little bit harder to draw one-to-one connections with, but you'll see guys like I've listed here Nick Hardy, Adam Hadwin, Sung Jae Im, Keith Mitchell, Matthew Neesmith, and Vincent Norman are all high finishers who are in the field this week. And then in addition to that, Detroit Golf Club, where we have the Rocket Mortgage, Silverado, where we have the Fortinet, TPC Deer Run, the John Deere Classic, and TPC Summerlin and San Antonio are other courses that just share the same profile of be strongest off the tee and be able to rack up a bunch of birdie opportunities. From there, I think we can skip actually straight ahead to the model. And as I pull this up here, I'll just talk through the key stats that I finalized for this week. I think it's a little bit of a tighter group of stats for my model this week because I think the approach buckets are pretty evenly distributed where I'm not focusing too much on a particular range of par 4 holes or proximity from 150 to 200 or anything like that. I think overall approach works well. So I kicked it off my most weight on strokes gained off the tee, as I mentioned. Avoid that water, put yourself in the fairway, and it becomes a pretty easy and scoreable course. Strokes gained approach is my second most important stat this week. All of the winners have spiked for over like 5 strokes on approach, so you need to have that capability on a course like this. And if you are strong on approach, the greens are large, but it'll give you even more scoring opportunities. Comp course history followed by opportunities gained and birdies gained. I put both in because birdies are better gained, kind of just adds putting to opportunities. But we've seen players like Cam Champ and Tony Finau, for example, come in horrible putting form and then go on to lead the field in strokes gained putting. So this is not a week that I'm going to fade a player because they're a bad putter, because if those two guys are capable of leading the field in putting, then literally anybody can. So that is something to keep in mind. I double down on strokes gained ball striking because the short game stats, I just really don't see much value in modeling off a short game here. Strokes gained around the green has had no correlation with success at TPC Twin Cities. And as I just said, the putting is kind of completely random. I have strokes gained off the tee on tight courses, not necessarily comp courses, but courses that are hard to hit fairways, but also a similar length to TPC Twin Cities. So guys who can hit a driver accurately is basically what this stat is capturing. And then par 5 scoring, there's 3 of them on this par 71, so that is important. And then we have strokes gained total over the last 12 rounds, so immediate form, just to see if anybody's kind of trending compared to some of the last 36 round info that I'm putting in here. And then we have good drives gained, self-explanatory, strokes gained putting on bent grass greens. That is something where if you're not a good putter in recent form, but you've been putting well on bent grass comparatively, then there might be something there. So that is the one thing from a short games perspective I'm putting a small weight on. Guy like Tony Finau, who plays so well at the Augustas of the world in Texas as well, that is bent grass based. So that could be an angle to look if you're looking for upside in a player who otherwise isn't looking fantastic putting. And then I just also put driving distance and fairways in here for reference, but not putting a ton of weight on them. Just want to see guys who are good off the tee. Is it because of the accuracy or the distance? Ideally both, because this is a pretty long course. So when we put that into the model, the top 10 gives us Sepp Straka number 1. That's interesting because this isn't pulling in strokes gained data from the Open. So this is before he even finished T2 there last week. He is somebody that I considered at 35-1, but ultimately Just chose to go a different way, but I think he's a very sensible bet this week. As I mentioned, he's top 2 in strokes gained ball striking at TPC Twin Cities. So obviously he can be a fit for this course, and it's a little bit uncomfortable seeing Sepp Straka play as good as he has, but it might be for real. We don't know. He's one of the more volatile players on the PGA Tour, but interested to see how he does. Somebody I'll have some exposure in DFS for sure, if nothing else. Sung Jae is number 2, also great history here. Steven Yeager, number 3, kind of fits that bill of elite ball striking and questionable putting. Was a little disappointing at the Barracuda where he's a favorite last week. So I might be shying away from him, but interesting that he popped this much. Tony Finau is your favorite this week in defending champion. He's number 4. Lucas Glover is a player I love and we'll come back to, but he's number 5. Really turning around his putter recently too. So a lot to like about Glover now. Hideki Matsuyama is number 6. Some questions I have about his neck sustaining a 11-hour flight in a short week, but we haven't heard much about his injury concerns lately. So something to monitor, but for now, I'm playing it cautious with Matsuyama. Emiliano Grillo, runner-up finisher at this event last year. He is number 7. Gary Woodland, great ball striker, questionable putter, fits the mold at number 8. Aaron Rai, very similar, elite at hitting fairways and on approach, and could really make an interesting Ryder Cup conversation if he wins this week. He's number 9, and Ryan Palmer is number 10. I'll now filter this to my outright bets. And here we go. So the first guy I bet on my card was Cameron Young, and he is a little bit lower in the model at number 13. But I'll pull up his player page here just to show the improvement and why that's probably not the case. So Cameron Young's been sort of an underachiever this year. He was at the beginning of the season a foregone conclusion that he would be on the Ryder Cup team, most likely alongside Will Zalatoris. And obviously these putting woes have held him back from being more of a contender. But if you look at it at a glance, it's actually not as bad as I think it's felt. He has a top 10 at the Arnold Palmer, a 7th at the Masters, and now he's coming off of back-to-back top 10s. What's encouraging is the putting seems to be improved. He actually led the field we don't have strokes gained on Fantasy National, but if you look at the statistics for the Open, he actually led the field in strokes gained approach and strokes gained off the tee at Hoylake, which obviously means that he was not hitting putts there either. But this should be a welcome place for anybody like a Cam Young. Really fits that Cameron Champ profile of elite ball striker, tons of distance, doesn't really have it with the putter, but on a straightforward surface, maybe with Paul Tesori eventually that pays dividends. But yeah, 3 strokes gained at the John Deere. That was also bent grass greens in a pretty easy scoring layout. So if he's capable of gaining 3 there and he can gain 3 this week, then I really like his chances. I think his approach numbers are much better than what you see here. I believe I was looking in the John Deere and he lost like 3 strokes in one round. He would have been +3 otherwise. So maybe a little bit of a boomer bust guy, but definitely seems like he's trending towards a win. He rearranged his schedule kind of last minute to play here, I think, again, because of the points positioning. So this is not an event he pre-committed to and he's not interested in. He actively put himself in this field and is motivated to get points. So we'll see how that goes, but I do really like Cameron Young's fit. This is one of the most ideal setups I could think of for Cameron Young's game. Next, we have Ludwig Aberg, another player who has some work to do with the Ryder Cup. If it were up to me, I'd put him on right now, but I think he needs another good showing just to make it easier on Captain Luke Donald that he is the right guy for the team. Really, really similar player profile with Aberg and Cameron Young. Be hard-pressed to find too many courses where I like Cam Young and I don't also like Ludwig Aberg. And in this case, you're getting him at nearly double the odds. I got him at 35-1 and Cameron Young at 18-1. Aberg is already one of the most elite drivers in this field, one of the most elite players on par 5 scoring as a result. He is number one in strokes gained on par fives. Top 10 in fairways already. Strokes gained off the tee on tight events, which he doesn't have that much experience under his belt. But he's already kind of climbing in that area, and opportunities gained. He's very good. So just from the eye test, he misses more putts than he should. But somebody who's very capable of going low. He shot 59 in college, probably like 2 months ago. So aggressive player, but really just hits a straight and long ball off the tee, which should play very well at TPC Twin Cities. Next is Lucas Glover at 60-1. I thought that was a phenomenal number. I was actually expecting him to open around like 35-1 with the recent run he's been on. So I want to pull up his player page too and just show the turnaround he's had since switching to the broomstick putter, which happened right here. So at the Travelers, he missed the cut with his standard putter. And with that standard putter, this is what he looked like on the greens, just a whole lot of red. Switches to the broomstick, and immediately it's paying dividends. He's gaining over 3 strokes. In his first 2 events with it at Barbasol, he kind of went neutral, but then you look at what the ball striking was doing, and you can kind of overlook even a neutral putting performance. So 3 consecutive top 6 finishes. The ball striking is incredible. He's always been a good ball striker. If you even zoom out, like, the spike approach has always been here. If we're looking over his last 10 events, he's averaging over 3 strokes gained on approach per event. So he is a flusher. And now with this broomstick putter, he has that upside to even convert those putts and not be as kind of shaky over them. So John Deere Classic, pretty good comp for this week. He was a winner there 2 years ago. And the ball striking couldn't be better. So I think it's a great spot for him. I think 60 is a bargain, and I would play him anywhere above 45-1 this week. I think he's a great value. Next, Eric Cole. Now, Eric Cole is going to be the one player when you look at this all-important category of strokes gained off the tee. He's the type of player I would initially think to avoid, because the only areas that he's not great in are off the tee or off the tee on tight courses. But the more I dove into it, 60-1 seemed like a long enough dip for me to buy low. I'll also pull up his player profile page just to kind of drill the point home here. But he finished 60th at the Scottish Open last week. He shot a 79 or 78. He shot 9 over on Sunday. So before that, he actually had the same score as Scotty Scheffler going into the final round, who was T3 going into that, and Scheffler finished T3. So if he just shot even par in those nasty windy conditions, which is asking a lot, that we'd be looking at another top 10 finish for him. The weather was so bad and nothing like what we're going to see at the 3M Open that I'm fine to just completely dismiss that final round and see the good of his first 3. Otherwise, off the tee, it doesn't look great, but where he was great was the Honda Classic. And that is a course that he's very familiar with. He's from right around the block in Florida. He plays that course a lot. He knows Florida golf. He knows the importance of avoiding the water. So that was obviously his best result of the year at T2 at the Honda Classic. I see that as a good comp for this week. So I know the off the tee numbers could be better, but it's not to say he's incapable of gaining off the tee. He has done it on comp courses. He has gained 3 strokes at the RBC Canadian. So he's capable of it. And obviously the rest of his game from fairway to green speaks for itself. He's a spike putter and a spike approach player. So 60-1, you're really kind of gambling that the off the tee numbers show up. But if they do, he looks poised to have a good round. And then Austin Eckroat is my last play here at 90-1 is what I got him at. He was 18th at my model player I wrote up in my tournament preview, which again, you can find linked in the description of this video. Checks the box as a ball striking flusher. I'm not going to pull up his page, but what you'll see is just a lot of green in off the tee and approach, and he kind of gives backstrokes from around the green. That doesn't matter on a course like this. You're not even going to miss. A good ball striker is going to rarely miss the greens on a course like this, and it's fair game for anyone to gain on the greens themselves. So, I just am drawn to the ball strike at a high number. I think we're getting a little bit of a buy low because he's had like back-to-back T60s, but before that he was kind of a top 20 machine. Finished runner-up at the Byron Nelson, so we know he can go low. Okay, that is where we're going to wrap it up for this video. I've got a tight betting card this week of just 5 players, but make sure you are, again, subscribe to the Discord channel. Follow me on Twitter at PGA Tour if you have any questions, and be on the lookout for my full betting card coming out this Wednesday. Thank you again for tuning in to this video, and best of luck with all your bets this week.